In the darkness before dawn, the Ottoman Empire was not ruled by swords alone, but by numbers. Numbers written in ink, yet paid for in blood. From its foundation in the late 13th century, the Ottoman state did not see the army merely as a tool of war, but as a complete economic structure. Every military expansion meant new land. Every new land meant taxes, grain, and people, recycled endlessly into the machinery of the state. In the 16th century, the peak of Ottoman power, the standing army numbered between 150,000 and 200,000 soldiers in peacetime, exceeding 300,000 during war. For comparison, England at the same time fielded no more than 50,000 troops. This army was not free. A single janissary earned a daily wage ranging from 12 to 20 akçe, roughly equivalent to the annual income of an average peasant. According to imperial treasury records, military salaries alone accounted for over 60% of the state budget in some years. This is where the real story begins. The empire relied on the timar system, a military economic structure that appeared brilliant on the surface. More than 90,000 timars were distributed across Anatolia and the Balkans. The cavalryman did not own the land, he exploited it in exchange for military service. The land produced grain, the grain fed the soldier, and the soldier conquered new land. A closed loop of war and production. But this loop was not eternal. As the 17th century began, the world changed. European artillery advanced. The cost of a single cannon reached the equivalent of a small city's annual income. Gunpowder, largely imported, became a strategic burden. In 1593, during the Long War against the Habsburgs, the Ottoman state spent an estimated 30 million akçe per year on the army alone. The treasury could not endure it. The state began debasing its currency. Between 1580 and 1600, the akçe lost more than 40% of its value. This marked the empire's descent into a darker phase of military economics. The janissary, once a professional soldier, became a merchant, a moneylender, and at times a thug. Their numbers rose from 12,000 in the 15th century to over 100,000 in the 17th century, with no real increase in effectiveness. Why? Because joining the army became a path to a paycheck, not to war. Tax registers tell the story clearly. Extraordinary taxes known as avaris multiplied. Entire villages were abandoned. Agricultural output in Anatolia dropped by an estimated 30% between 1600 and 1650, according to historian Halil İnalcık. The empire was not collapsing by the sword, but by the budget. By the 18th century, the Ottoman state was spending more on its army than it could produce. Spoils of war were no longer enough. Expansion stalled. An economy built on conquest no longer knew how to survive without it. In 1768, when war erupted with Russia, Ottoman military expenditures reached unprecedented levels. The outcome was disastrous. Defeat came not only on the battlefield, but on the balance sheet. For the first time, the empire turned to indirect borrowing. Trade privileges were granted to European powers. French and British merchants received tax exemptions, while the Ottoman peasant paid more than ever. By 1800, several provinces were financing themselves outside central control. The army, created to protect the state, had become a state within the state. And when the 19th century arrived, the truth stood exposed. A military economy without war is an economy that commits slow suicide. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II destroyed the Janissary Corps, not only for reform, but because the treasury could no longer sustain them. The military modernization that followed required factories, higher wages, and imported weapons, numbers far beyond the empire's capacity. By 1875, the Ottoman state officially declared bankruptcy. The Ottoman Public Debt Administration was established. The empire no longer controlled even its own tax revenues. And here lies the fatal irony. The state that ruled 3 continents through its army lost its sovereignty because of its finances. This is not the story of a military defeat. It is the story of an economy built on war that forgot peace. The Ottoman Empire did not fall suddenly. It fell number by number, salary by salary, campaign after campaign with no return. And the lesson history leaves behind is brutal and clear. When the army becomes the center of the economy becomes hostage to war. And when war stops, the end begins.